In this episode of Body Story, we witness the miraculous power of the body to heal itself and how these self-repair systems gradually break down. The reason for old age. We share a dramatic 4 weeks with Lisa Mason. Life seems difficult enough.
Can you give me a hand, Lisa?
But it's about to take a turn for the worse. We see the miraculous power of her cells to respond as they face the crisis of a shattered bone. Lisa is young, but one day her body will be in the same condition as Bob Bridges. We spend one day with Bob, the day that comes eventually to all of us, when his body finally winds down after a lifetime of renewing itself. It can no longer respond to crisis, and that means Bob is living on borrowed time.
Goes in the back bedroom.
Wiring's brilliant. You can see right across the fields and everything.
Every day, Lisa Mason puts her body under tremendous strain. If it were a machine, it would break down in months. But the human body has an amazing capacity for self-maintenance and repair. In the next few days, Lisa will test this ability to the limit. To withstand the pressure that Lisa puts on it, her body needs to be incredibly strong. The strength lies in her bones. Bones resist compression forces twice as much as granite, yet they are just 1/5 the weight of steel. Deep inside, bone isn't solid. It's made of interconnecting arches like a honeycomb housing nerves and blood vessels. These arches are built of a composite material, a mixture of tough minerals like calcium and phosphate, and a flexible protein called collagen. Only this century did human engineers discover what nature has always known.
Come on, Lisa, you can do all that later.
That composite materials are strongest.
Oops. Gravity.
Oh, never mind, I'll mend it later. Come on.
Lisa's bones aren't just composite, they're smart. Their interior honeycomb structure continually adapts to the way she uses them. Like every human, Lisa has a walk which is unique to her. And her leg bones have evolved a unique structure to match. Their tiny inner arches have grown into a pattern designed to disperse the impact of her walk and to protect her delicate joints. If the way she walks were to change, through injury for example, the arches inside her bones would quickly realign themselves.
Can you give me a hand, Lisa?
She responded, she knows her name.
Beneath Lisa's skin, her bones are teeming with life. Full of blood vessels and nerves, they're as alive as her heart or her brain. Inhabiting their interior landscape are millions of microscopic life forms whose job it is to keep Lisa's skeleton in a state of eternal youth. These cells are part of an enormous workforce which maintains the arches inside her bones. First, cells called osteoclasts squirt an acid which is strong enough to burn through sheet metal. As this acid dissolves away the tough mineral coating and the strands of collagen beneath, a crew of bone-building cells called osteoblasts follows in its wake. These cells lay down new collagen and coat it with a fresh frost of minerals. Throughout Lisa's skeleton, the bone destroyers and bone builders work ceaselessly to prevent her bones from ever getting so old that they crack and crumble. Around 10% of her bone is replaced every year. Over time, the process will slow down. But even if Lisa lives to be 95, none of her bones will be more than 20 years old.
London. What's your name? Lisa. That's not the sort of bike you want round here. I bet you can't ride over our ramp on it. Come on then!
Sometimes the human body is called upon to do more than gradual renewal and repair. Sometimes it has to deal with a major catastrophe. As she rides, Lisa's brain instructs individual muscles to tense and relax, making subtle adjustments to keep her body balanced. It's a system of breathtaking complexity involving practically every bone and muscle in her body. Unfortunately, it's not infallible.
Watch out for that rock!
As Lisa hits the ground, the bones in her arm are subjected to a sudden force 25 times her body weight. Despite Bone's incredible strength, under this much pressure, their narrow part is designed to break. Her radius bone snaps in order to prevent damage to the rest of Lisa's body.
Lisa! Lisa! Okay. You better get her, Mum. Yeah, right now.
Inside Lisa's bone, there is carnage. The intricate arches have been smashed to pieces. Hundreds of tiny blood vessels have been severed. Battered pain nerves send frantic signals up her spinal cord to her brain. Her brain responds by releasing its own natural morphine called endorphins, which mute the pain signals to almost nothing. The brain involves endorphins to keep pain at bay for a few vital minutes in case she needs to escape danger. As well as her broken arm, Lisa has a badly bruised knee and a severe graze on her hand. But she can't feel any of them. For the moment, she's anesthetized. Ten minutes after the accident, Lisa's endorphins have worn off. The pain is distressing, but it's also essential. The body's way of alerting us to internal damage. As the pain grows, Lisa instinctively rubs her arm as close to the injury as she can bear. This rubbing releases another wave of pain-blocking chemicals. But they're milder than endorphins, too mild to counter the frantic pain signals coming from a broken bone. Lisa has done severe damage to her body, but already it is showing signs of its remarkable ability to heal itself. On her hand, the task is to stop blood from pouring from tiny severed vessels. Specialist blood cells called platelets change their shape as they come into contact with damaged flesh. They turn into tiny spheres which lock together and plug the wound. At the same time, invisible proteins in her blood solidify into strands of a substance called fibrin. A net of fibrin is thrown across the wound, trapping the blood cells beneath. Now the fibrin net contracts, squeezing liquid out of the clot like water out of a sponge. And as the clot shrinks, it pulls the skin together, closing the wound. One quick blast of water and the body's careful repair is washed away. But once Lisa's wound is cleaned,
It's hurting.
it will start to heal again as swiftly as before. Lisa's surface wound has been treated, but no one knows the extent of the injury beneath her skin. Yet without waiting for the doctor, her damaged arm is summoning help from her own body. The battered tissues around the fracture send out chemical signals which make her arm swell to double its normal size. The swelling is caused by blood vessels in her arm dilating. Fluid passes from the blood into the surrounding tissue, flooding the fracture site with oxygen and other nutrients. The chemicals which trigger swelling also cause the pain nerves in her arm to become more sensitive. The slightest pressure has them firing off pain signals to her brain. Her pain threshold is now so low she can even feel the blood pulsing through her swollen vessels, a throbbing ache. But once again, pain has a purpose. It protects Lisa's arm by making sure she does nothing to aggravate the injury. It's an hour and a half after the accident before the doctor is able to take a look beneath Lisa's skin.
Okay, if you keep nice and still like that now. Okay, to behind the screen. Yes.
Already, things have begun to change. Just as on the surface of her hand, blood is clotting inside her fractured bone. But so many blood vessels have been severed that it will take another half an hour for the flow of blood into the break to completely stop. The result will be a huge blood clot enveloping the entire fracture, a hematoma.
Afraid you've broken your arm. Just across there. That must have been a spectacular fall.
What bone have I broken?
Look, there's two bones there.
There's
the
very
small
little
bone
the
ulna,
doctors
and
can
this
do
big
for
one that's
Lisa.
broken is the radius.
They can set her arm in plaster, but her self-healing processes must do the rest.
In a few weeks, it'll be as right as rain.
Once the hematoma around the fracture is fully formed, her body will perform a miracle and transform this massive clot from blood to bone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't find the knives and forks anywhere.
Wait till I see those girls again.
It wasn't their fault, you know, Mum. Excuse me, kids.
Lisa's body is faced with a massive repair job. To mend the broken bone in her arm, she needs thousands of bone-building cells, and quickly. Inhabiting the spaces deep inside her bones are specialist cells called stem cells, responsible for replacing dead and damaged tissue. Stem cells are factories making new cells. Usually, they divide to create a new cell once every 2 days. Now, to form an army of bone-building osteoblasts, they divide once every 3 minutes.
And it doesn't sound as if they were being very friendly to me, Lisa.
You just don't understand kids these days, do you, Dad? That bit goes there.
8 hours after the accident, and the bone builders are inside the hematoma. The minerals they release encase the clotted blood cells in tough bone. Outside the clot, more osteoblasts are working. The transformation from blood into bone is underway. Lisa's body is doing what no machine can ever do. It is repairing itself. Repair work is going on all over Lisa's body. On her knee, blood from tiny vessels, severed when she hit the ground, has been trapped inside her skin. As the iron-based pigment, which makes blood red, is gradually broken down chemically, the blood changes color through all the rainbow hues of a bruise. In the space of just 5 days, her body clears the blood away completely.
Well, we're planning on putting in a new kitchen, but apart from that, everything's fine, really.
Less than a week after the accident, the clot on Lisa's hand has dried to become an irresistibly itchy scab.
1 minute. Lisa,
Don't pick.
thank you. Hi. No, it's fine. Well, maybe next week.
New skin is growing fast around the scab. A millimeter beneath the surface, stem cells are dividing to create new skin cells. The new cells are pushed up to replace the damaged skin above. Lisa's scab begins to loosen and is easier to pull off.
No, it's fine. Maybe.
I'll get it.
No, it's fine.
My mum said I should bring these for you. Thanks. Wow, is it broken?
The two broken ends of Lisa's bone are steadily bonding together.
It's the biggest one.
Her cast protects the injury, but it's designed not to restrict the movement of the bones completely. As she flexes her fingers, the two ends of the break shift gently in relation to each other. This movement generates tiny electric currents, which seem to invigorate the work of the bone builders. Movement is actually helping to fix Lisa's broken bone.
What you doing? Oh, my finger exercises. I've never lived in the countryside before. You like it? You can see the stars better at night. I like that.
Until the bone builders have finished their work, Lisa's arm is still fragile.
Scrub. Scrub.
So her pain nerves have remained sensitive in an effort to protect her.
Where's the green pen? Ow! Sorry. Don't worry.
But her body is mending at a remarkable rate. On her hand, new skin is laid down in such a hurry that there's no time to replicate the pattern of the original skin. In fact, because children heal more quickly than adults, they scar more easily too.
Neil Armstrong said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
Just 4 weeks after her accident, Lisa's cast is ready to come off. Deep inside, the hematoma is almost pure bone. The bone builders are finishing their work, and in the process, something quite remarkable happens. They deliberately wall themselves in. Then they send out filaments like tiny antennae to broadcast from their prisons of bone.
Maybe it was his right.
Why they do this isn't fully understood, but throughout Lisa's skeleton, thousands of walled-in bone builders are sending out signals. Somehow, they are part of the complex process by which her bones adapt to the stresses and strains which Lisa puts on them. Because she is still growing, Lisa's bone has healed twice as fast as an adult's would. As we get older, our bones' regenerative powers decline. But with time, they can always perform their own miraculous repair. Under her skin, the hematoma has been transformed into a solid ball of bone. Twice as thick and strong as the original bone which was there. But a stronger section in her bone could be a weakness. If Lisa were to fall on her arm again, her radius might not break in the way nature intended. She could do herself even more serious damage. So in Lisa's arm, the bone destroyers, the osteoclasts, stir into life. With jets of acid, they begin dissolving away the thick, over-repaired bone. They will continue to resculpt it until it is exactly the shape it would have been had it grown normally and never been broken. Although it's only taken a month to fix the bone destroyers will keep sculpting for another whole year.
Try a wheelie, Lisa. No way. Wait for me.
By next summer, the bone destroyers will also have carved tunnels through the inside of the bone, perfectly restoring its intricate arches. Filled with blood vessels and teeming with life again, it will look like any other bone in Lisa's body, as if the accident had never happened. The body's built-in first aid kit works up to a point, but over time, as supplies run out, so does our ability to heal. In the next half hour, octogenarian Bob Bridges faces the day when his body can no longer respond to crisis. Bob Bridges' body has carried him through 87 years of life. But not for much longer. Time has worn Bob's body out. Every one of his organs is in decline. Our bodies have evolved to last only long enough to pass our genes to the next generation. Once we have reproduced and reared our children, we are all dispensable. Bob fulfilled his biological purpose long ago. He's living on borrowed time. Since the day he was born, the cells in Bob's body have been dying. But his body is designed to replace them.
Look, Qwerty, it's from Ralph. Ralph. Right. King takes pawn.
It's because his body is constantly repairing and renewing itself that Bob has been able to survive for 87 years. Every day of his life, he's lost 1 billion cells from the surface of his skin. But just 1 millimeter beneath the skin's surface lie specialist cells called stem cells. These cells are factories producing healthy new skin cells to take the place of those that die. Bob has different kinds of stem cells all over his body. They have replaced his bones, his blood, even the lining of his stomach, over and over again. The cycle of renewal is so rapid that most of his body has never been more than 10 years old. Some parts only 3 days old.
Fancy the West Beach today?
But some of Bob's most vital organs, including his heart and his brain, are made of cells which can never be renewed. These cells have suffered almost 9 decades of toxic damage. They have been attacked by pollution and ultraviolet light. But even in the cleanest environment, cells get damaged because they generate their own pollutants. Inside every cell in Bob's body are tiny electrically charged particles known as free radicals. Free radicals are the waste products of healthy cell activity. Highly volatile, they have the potential to damage anything they collide with. At the heart of the cell is its blueprint, its DNA. It's struck by free radicals around 10,000 times a day. Usually, the DNA repairs itself, but on very rare occasions, the repair process fails. With an altered blueprint, the cell's behavior becomes unpredictable. The body's solution is drastic. A cell with severely damaged DNA is programmed to commit suicide. With every passing day, more and more of Bob's cells die, and the stem cells which manufacture new cells are dying too. Bob is quite simply wasting away. It's the cumulative effect of cells dying all over his body, which is taking its toll on the quality of Bob's life. When he walks, Bob's brain sends signals to stimulate the muscles in his legs. But in his spinal cord, free radicals have killed off nerve cells. Connections have been broken. Signals can no longer get through. Bob's leg muscles have grown weaker. These weakened muscles need more oxygen to keep them moving. But Bob's breathing apparatus from his windpipe to his lungs is not what it was. He's lost 1/6 of the delicate surface which absorbs oxygen into his blood. His breathing is shallow and inefficient. Worse still, Bob's heart has lost 1/4 of its muscle cells. Less and less oxygen is being pumped to his legs. He used to be able to run at more than 10 miles an hour. Now, 2 miles an hour is as fast as his legs can carry him.
Oh, it's Grandad. Morning, Dad. Morning. What's this then, Simon?
Reward for helping me with a new stock.
Would never happened in my day.
You only sold typewriters.
So you think you need the practice then, do you?
Bob's most precious organ is his brain. Somewhere in the trillions of connections between his brain cells lie his personality and memory. If his brain cells were replaced, everything that Bob is would be lost.
Splendid. Must run in the family.
It's not that brain cells don't die. Free radicals, and even the odd bump on the head, have contributed to Bob's brain losing 50,000 cells each day of his life. But because we're born with many more brain cells than we ever use or need, the effects of a shrinking brain take a long time to show. Even though 10% of his brain cells have died, Bob is still mentally sharp most of the time. But the death toll isn't evenly spread across his brain. Certain abilities are beginning to suffer.
Your dad never used to help me in the shop.
Well, maybe you should have paid him.
Didn't give you anything to do?
You know he did, Grandad. He gave me that chess game.
Deep in Bob's brain is an area called the hippocampus. Its role is to translate experiences into memories. Since he was 50, it has lost 1/5 of its cells. His brain is now less able to lay down new memories. This may explain one of the paradoxes of old age, that Bob can't remember recent events as well as he can recall experiences from his distant past. Every time we learn a new skill, our brain cells reach out and forge connections with each other. But over the years, Bob's brain has become less able to make these fresh connections. It's more difficult for him to learn new skills. The organs which feed information to Bob's brain are degenerating too. In his inner ear, years of noise have destroyed sound-sensitive cells. He began to lose the ability to hear high-pitched sounds when he was only 30. Since he was 50, Bob has been farsighted. Ironically, his sight has been damaged by his body's own efforts at repair. The lens in his eye maintains itself by regularly coating its surface with a transparent protein. But as more and more layers have been laid down, his lens has become rigid. And a rigid lens is more difficult to focus. Bob's senses may have suffered the ravages of time, but the skills he's practiced throughout his life are still as sharp as ever. When connections between brain cells are used repeatedly, the connections themselves stay strong.
Might be a new table, but still the same old game.
Just like his muscles, the more Bob uses his brain cells, the less likely they are to die.
See you tomorrow.
Simon, thank you for letting me beat you at pinball.
Bye.
Bob has kept himself alert and alive for nearly 90 years. But the truth is, that's far longer than humans were designed to survive. And now, Bob's losing his grasp on life. The cells in Bob's body have many functions, but all of them generate heat, and this heat helps to sustain Bob's life. But now, with a dwindling number of cells, he's colder than he used to be. Even worse, Bob is less able to conserve his body heat. Our temperature is controlled by the blood vessels in our skin. When we're hot, they expand to give out excess heat. When we're cold, they constrict to divert blood and heat into the core of our bodies. But Bob has lost this ability. Even though he's cold, the blood vessels in his hands are still losing heat to the outside world. Like old pipes coated with deposits, his vessels are coated with fat and calcium. His central heating system is no longer working as it should. Bob's temperature control is one of many systems in his body which are only just coping with the demands of everyday life. In Bob's stomach, his lunch is broken down by digestive acid. His stomach shields itself from this acid with a cellular lining. But just like everywhere else in his body, the stem cells which generate this lining are starting to die off. Bob doesn't know it, but his stomach wall is getting threadbare and open to acid attack. For most of us, this would pose no real danger. But in Bob's increasingly fragile state, it could easily become life-threatening. Digestive acid has burnt its way right through his stomach wall into an artery. Blood pours through the hole into his stomach. But all Bob feels is a little queasy and lightheaded.
Not feeling too good, Qwerty. Think I'll have a little lie down.
Bob is in very little pain, but his body is just too old to cope with this crisis. If he were a younger man, his perforated artery would instantly constrict to slow the loss of blood. But his aged, clogged blood vessel is too stiff. Pints of blood are pouring into his stomach. Bob's blood pressure is dropping. His heart beats faster to keep blood moving around his body. But even pumping at its maximum rate, his fragile heart cannot restore his blood pressure to normal.
Not now, Qwerty. Not now.
For Bob, this is the beginning of the end. Bob's stomach is starting to digest his own leaking blood, releasing potassium into his bloodstream. His body is no longer strong enough to filter it out. And potassium can reset the rhythm of the heart. Bob's heart starts to beat irregularly. For the first time in nearly 90 years, the supply of blood and oxygen being pumped around his body falters. The most devastating impact is on his brain. For all its power, the brain is a fragile organ. It needs constant and plentiful supplies of oxygen. It's vulnerable to the slightest drop in blood flow. In a vain attempt to conserve energy, Bob's brain suspends all activity except that which keeps his body functioning. Bob slips into unconsciousness. His heart is pumping so little blood, it can no longer support its own beat. Slowly, it is grinding to a halt. The traffic of blood around Bob's body has ceased. Death is now inevitable. Though Bob is still breathing, there is no oxygen getting to his cells. The cause of each death is as individual as the life which preceded it. But the order in which the body shuts down is always the same. The first cells to die are in the brain. As death approaches, they release waves of morphine-like chemicals called endorphins, which blot out any anxiety or pain. Dying cells in his visual cortex start to fire off signals at random. Although his eyes are shut, it's as if he's seeing. This may explain the tunnel of light which many people report when brought back from the brink of death. Finally, brain cells detach from one another, breaking the connections they had made during a lifetime of thinking and remembering. Bob's brain is dead. Now, all remaining body function ceases. Death is a process in which every tissue and organ shuts down at its own pace. Bob's body will continue making skin cells for several minutes. His muscles will live on for hours, but eventually these too will stop. As cell after cell ceases its activity, Bob's body stops generating its own heat. With its internal fire extinguished, it starts to cool towards the temperature of the room. Bob is dead, but he still has a biological presence. The blueprint for his cells, his DNA, has been passed down to his son, and from his son to his grandson. Though his consciousness is gone, Bob's characteristics live on.